The way we're going to do it today, the first kinno I'm going to go through with you line by line, so at least we know one kinno that what we're saying, exactly what we're saying. The other ones are going to give just a general overview and introduction. So we're going to go through Shabbos, which is, of course, from the Kalir. Most of the kinnos are from the Kalir, who was is a mythical figure. We don't know exactly who he was, but he was a very profound and difficult writer who wrote referring to things in hints and half psukim and references. You have to be a big time chacham just to understand what he wrote. So let's go through it and try and understand it, at least on some level. Shabbos. Sumi many shimuni ochrai. So Shabbos, the word Shabbos, with which we begin the kinnos of the day, is not shows of accent. It means a sudden cessation. It means something which stops in the middle. We have the story in the Gemara and the Kidden that got to the Korban about the Korban of Tur Malka, when one side of the city they were having all sorts of parties, while the other side of the city the Romans were destroying, and all of a sudden it came on the one side of the city what was happening to the other side of the city. It took several days in order for it to happen. And the most Avelus is supposed to subside over time. There's a Gzera al-Meis shenishishtakach min alev. Mesim is supposed to be forgotten gradually over time. Not completely, obviously, but the dull pain is supposed to go away. By Churban Abayis, we call it Avelus Yeshana, Avelus on the base of Mikdash, it's supposed to be Avelus Chadasha, Avelus on a mace. It's supposed to be always as if it happened suddenly. Something was wrenched from us, and we're missing it. And it's a traumatic experience. That's the way a person is supposed to go through life. That as if Meso Munach Lefonav, to feel that there's this terrible, terrible void, this gap, which all of a sudden, I can't get over it. It's something which is beyond my capacity to avoid. Again, it's something supposed to be raw and painful all the time. And that's every simcha which we have, we know from halacha, is another Tur Malka. On one side you have the simcha which we have in the chasna or the bar mitzvah or the bris or whatever it is. On the other hand, we have the breaking of the cup and mishkat and Yerushalayim, and they're not supposed to be separated. There are two ways in which they're supposed to work together, either or both. Either they're side by side in our minds, and what part of our mind has the idea of the simcha we're experiencing, and the other side of the mind has the Avelus and Yerushalayim, or this understanding that all of our meaning in life fuses together. All meaning in life which we have comes from the Beis HaMikdash. Whether we have it in actual practice or not, everything which we have, and obviously the kinnos are going to go through this, come from the Kedusha of the Mikdash, which even if we don't actually have in practice, is something which constantly has to be in the back of our mind. So there are this is the idea of Kol Mis'abel Yerushalayim Zoche V'Roa B'Simchasa. There are two meanings to that as well. If you're Mis'abel Yerushalayim today, will be Zoche V'Roa B'Simchasa tomorrow. But also means that you can't have a Simcha B'Zman Hazeh without Avelus and Yerushalayim. Because what does actually true Simcha and Am Yisrael represent? It represents being connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu was directly connected to Yerushalayim and the Beis HaMikdash. And even today, we have to have that understanding. And therefore, there's something which we have to distinguish. Not always we make this distinction, but it's worth looking at it because in the kinnos it does happen. The difference between Sason and Simcha. We have it all over Tanakh. Sason and Simcha. And there are many differences between the two of them. There's a fascinating Gemara in Sukkah about the two mediums, Sason and Simcha. I had a conversation about each of them and their milos, but it's not a conversation with Tisha B'Av. But in the Simcha, people can have. Even as man as that. People who have a bakosha, bakadosh baruch Hu, have a meaningful quest for bakadosh baruch Hu in this world, can experience simcha. Sason, we can't have it on the Beis HaMikdash. Sason means an exuberance, an outer form of experiencing of absolute ecstasy, which one cannot have in the absence of Yerushalayim. It only happened in the Beis HaMikdash. And now, also, Adam Shimali Pischok Olam Hazeh. Because we can't have the true Sason, which is the Sason of Kedusha, which means an exuberance of outpouring, an outburst, an unrestrained simcha, without the Beis Hamikdash. Without that, it has a danger of becoming holus, a danger of becoming leitzonus. So therefore, every time we have a simcha today, we have these restraints on us to understand that true sasam cannot happen without having a Beis Hamikdash, without having the place where this can all be experienced with kedusha. So every place a person goes is supposed to feel the sense of shavas. There's something missing. There's a void within me, and it didn't happen yesterday. Kol dor shelo nivna Beis Hamikdash b'yomav kilu nechra b'yomav. It's happening today. The Churban is happening as we speak because there is no Beis Hamikdash, and every moment there's no Beis Hamikdash is another Churban. So Shavas. Sumri many shimuni ochrai. So the get away from me. The people who detested me said, "Schiamos hesimuni beidrei chavirai." They put me to something repugnant and disgusting among my friends, and that means all the nations of the world come and look at us and say, "Look at Am Yisrael, what a disgusting nation." And this is the tremendous Chil Hashem, which we have in our day and age when we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, when we have the Churban, which took away from us the place where everybody sees Kisaki Ro Kishem Hashem Nikra Alecha. They saw that this name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is upon us. They would come to the Beis Hamikdash, which is a special viewing section of the Beis Hamikdash, for the Goyim to come and watch what's going on. And they saw that this Am Yisrael special, whether they converted, didn't convert, because I'll say that many did convert, others didn't. But the point is that there was the idea that, this is the I'm Hashem Hema. And that means the immediately at the beginning of the Kaliyah says the idea of no Beis Hamikdash, it makes us meaningless and repugnant even in the eyes of the nations of the world. And that Chil Hashem is an integral part of our Avelus on the Churban and Beis Hamikdash. Not just our lack of Kedusha, our lack of Torah, our lack of a place where we can go to experience the connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but the fact that there's this tremendous Chil Hashem, which then allows people not to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is connected to Am Yisrael. Sakosa v'huvlugu kiburai. So I'm sorry. Sakosa mishkan is supposed to be right. Sakosa, a sukkah is a covering, a barrier. So Kadosh Baruch Hu put a barrier between himself and us. These are all references to Psukim and Eicha. To look at you didn't look at my Virai and my Beis Hamikdash. Sakosa v'huvlugu kiburai, and you didn't look at us, and therefore also my strong men were destroyed. Savku kafu ma'adu everai, they clapped their hands, the non-Jews, and my limbs stumbled. Kisi lokal abirai, when all of my mighty warriors were destroyed. So the Kalir is saying that there's a hester upon him. The hester upon him is such that even if Am Yisrael has strong people, in the Gemara and Gittin, the God the Churban talks about the warriors like Bar Deroma and Bar Kochba, who are considered to be tremendously powerful, and even the non-Jews were afraid of them. But if there's a hester upon him, if there's no connection between Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which happened as a result of our leaving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem left us, so then no strength in this world, no kochi betzim yodi can help us out. We're left to suffer at the hands of our tormentors. Nafla odeinu b'tzul d'chuyah. It's an interesting term, od. Od is like Od Avinu Chai. There's our eternity is considered to be an ode. It's coming more and more. Odi Shama Barayud of Chutz Yisrael Kos L'Sam B'Simcha. Ode is a language of eternity for Ed and of testimony, Edus. And Am Yisrael is the Edus, of course, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But our Odenu, your eternity fell into the depths of a pit, and and I'm waiting for the fulfillment of the nevuah of Odesh, whose Kinnos Kutzos Yushalayim, which is at the end of the very famous Gemara. Of course, everybody knows at the end of Maseches Makkos, where they were walking in Har Bayis, and they saw Shualim and Chobo, the foxes, coming in and outside of the area of the Beis Hamikdash, and the Chachamim cried, and Rabbi Kiva was mitzachek, and Rabbi Kiva said, until I saw the kiyum of this one nevuah. I didn't think that the other nevuah would be fulfilled, and then the nevuah which he's referring to is nevuah of Yeshua's came the nevuah of Zechariah ben Brachia, and we mentioned this again in the first keynote. This first keynote basically has everything in it already at the beginning, because the idea of a Churban should not detract from an Adarabah. As we mentioned last night, it has to build our emunah. In other words, the fact that we suffer so much. Yochanan ben Zakkai went to make this point in Gemara Ksuva stuff. I mean, hey, when he leaves Yerushalayim and he sees, I think it was Martha Basbasis, whoever it was, one of these the very distinguished women collecting grain from the dung of the Arab animals, and he says, Am Yisrael, when you go up, you're up you're up in the greatest, right? And when you're the lowest, you go down to the lowest. You're given over to Uma Shfela, and the lowest part of the Uma Shfela, the dung of the animals, you got grain from there. So the fact that we sink so low shows how high we can go. The higher they are, the greater they fall, and the converse is true as well. The lower we are shows the higher we can go. So therefore, we at the same time we have this understanding of the Churban as this tremendous loss. The fact that Am Yisrael survived the Churban, and the fact that we're here almost 2,000 years later, still being misabel on the Churban, and we're still looking for this nevuah of Od Yeshua's Kinnos to be fulfilled.
That was already.
What?
That was already.
Partially, but still not all the streets. Not all the streets. Yeah, that's the. I saw somebody said. Somebody said. Wrote. I saw somebody wrote. As long as you can't go throughout the whole Iratika and sit like that, it's not fulfilled. So that there is still the eastern part of Yerushalayim, right? So till it's completely safe over there. So then we're waiting for that. But you're right. With Baruch Hashem, we see a partial fulfillment. Yes. So the idea is that our emunah is to be strengthened by the fact that, in fact, we see that there is this connection which goes on. So I'm still waiting, Chazon ben Brechia, and especially, like Chaim said to this, there is this ongoing process. Until the wonders which happened in Gilgal when we conquered Eretz Yisrael the first time, it started in Gilgal, which are hidden, until it happens, my eye cries in crippled Greek. A crippled Greek, many different interpretations of this, and some what exactly it means, but basically Latin was considered to be crippled Greek. In other words, the Greeks had the philosophy, the first anti-Semitism of the second Beis Hamikdash period, and the Romans took it over. Romans were never the philosophers; they were the practitioners. But the idea is that the Greeks started and the Romans continued, and that classic world, as they call it, of the Greeks and the Romans, they were the ones who brought about our Churban, and still we're in that Churban today. The Kalir evidently live in Christian countries, so I was aware of them, that we're still among them and still suffering from them till this very day. Asav Nicham HaKadosh Baruch Hu did this, and then he changed his mind, Kabiyachal. And he said, okay, by Kol B'chia, he said, let's cry together. V'nam al Eilani B'chia. He said, Kadosh Baruch Hu cries with us. The thing is, the question is whether we're crying the way we're supposed to. Obviously, we're not. Because if we would have been crying the way we were supposed to, then and we'll come back to that later, Kinnos. But then the Beis Hamikdash obviously been rebuilt. But Hashem says, I'm here crying with you. Imo anochi b'tzara. So therefore, let's work on this together. Whatever it takes to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, we're in it together, and let's try and work on it. But now, in the meantime, we don't just remember the first Churban by Sheni. We'll go back to Churban by Rishon. Pnei Pras Nuftu Chasidea, on the face of the Euphrates River, the Chasidim of Am Yisrael were scattered. Pagei Zuf Suf Zachra Ori Yisodea. And remember, we're going to have a special keynote about this later on. Mitzrayim. Remember Kriyas Yamsuf, when the foundation of the Beis Hamikdash were destroyed, and especially by the same by the Euphrates River, they made the connection between the water and the water, and the tzoros of Am Yisrael all merged together. There is there's a town where the Beckhoffers come from, the little town of Beshofen. Actually, one of my sons was there this past week on Sunday and visited the town. There are no Jews there, but there are many memorials to the Jews who live there. So we have a sefer of Minhagim from Beshofen. And I don't know, I've mentioned this in the past, but it's worth mentioning in Tisha B'Av, that in the Yizkor section, they had a Yizkor, this is written a couple hundred years ago, which they mentioned 300 kilos which had pogroms. Kehila by kehila by kehila in the Yizkor. Now, it's obviously a very long Yizkor, but the point is that, and the person who put together the Minhagim into a nice sefer, he tried to find the source of each one of these pogroms, what exactly happened there. But the reason why Tisha B'Av is so focal for us is because we link all the tzaras together, and all one big tzara. What's the tzara Chil Hashem? There's no the connection between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael is lacking. It's not manifest. It's not obvious. And again, a person is supposed to have tsar on the Shechina being in Golus, that we're not doing our job. So we mentioned all the churbanos here. The next thing we mention is Pachad Chet Shiloh Tachab Sodeha. The remembrance of the Chet of Shiloh when Eli's sons Chofni and Pinchas caused the destruction of Mishkan Shiloh. That too, remember on Tisha B'Av and mourn over. And we're going to come to the other ones in a minute. The Chazir Yar is of course the wild boars, and it's wild boar is used as a description of Esav, and the idea, of course, is that the pig stretches its hooves and says that we're kosher, we're a kosher animal. So the idea is that part of the Chil Hashem is that the Christians come along and they say that if you're so that's what they said at the time of the Churban. If you were so holy, I saw this yesterday just in Josephus. I have an edition of Josephus which is put out by Christians. Somebody gave it me as a gift many years ago. So they say, you know what? As quote unquote our gospels say, then the destruction of Beis Hamikdash indicates that the Jewish people were replaced. They're no longer the chosen nation. We're the chosen nation. So that's a Chazir Yar saying, Chazir, you would think you have such pious people, right? Look what happened to you. Obviously, you've been replaced. You messed up. You didn't accept our Savior, so therefore you're suffering now in your goals. Patsu Masei Ervol Nideha. So the idea here is most of the explanations have been explained as those who went into Nov and Nod Ba'aretz went into Golus. And obviously, as a result of our being Golus, all sorts of riots were perpetrated against us in many different manners which are described. But it also, the said referred to what we say more explicitly in Qs later on is the 400 children who were taken into captivity for purposes of depravity and all jumped off the boat and drowned. Persot Sion biyadeh. And Sion lifted up his hand and says, there's nothing we can do. In other words, we realize that we're looking for help and we don't get it from anyone. Even people who we thought at the time of the destruction of Beis Hamikdash would help us. And we're going to see in a few moments, they also can help us. There's no ein lanu mishayin el Avinu shebashamayim. Al har tzadu shonei midonai. So on the mountain there stood the people who were listening to the noise of midonai, my internal strife. My internal strife is what caused the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. As we'll come to speak about later on, the internal strife in Yerushalayim was what caused the entire rebellion and caused ultimately the destruction of Beis Hamikdash and all the tragedy. So they're just waiting. When they see us fighting, they say, "Okay, let's wait here on the mountain. Al har tzadu, we'll lay in ambush, shonei b'donai, until they'll finish themselves off among themselves." Even today, Hezbollah, Hamas, they say, look at the Jews fighting among themselves. They'll do the job for us. So the Shonei Midonai is a problem which we have from time immemorial, is at the basis of the Churban of Beis Hamikdash. So for Roshi's day was Donai. And then, in fact, they're overwhelmed me and flowed over my head all those waters of my deliberate sins, mostly been on Mechavero, and that's what destroyed me. It wasn't them. Well, like the Chazal say, when Titus came to Beis Hamikdash, Kimcha Tchina Trachanta. You ground flour. The Shechina was already gone. All the internal fighting, that took the Shechina away. That's how shuls are destroyed too. We know that. Things are destroyed when there's internal schools, moistus, when there's internal fighting. It usually doesn't come from the outside, it comes from the inside. So all they have to do is wait for me. And some supernova Lamodze night, they didn't know outside Yerushalayim. And they said they stood there and watched, okay, let's see the Jews, how they eat themselves up on the inside. But also Nov is mentioned here because Nov was a place where after Shiloh was destroyed, the Aron was there and the Avodah was there for many years. So therefore, there's another Churban, the Churban of Nov. It's a small Churban, but also all the Churbanos are mentioned. Everything comes together in Tisha B'Av. Tzod Natzras L'Orer Midonai. They here Natzras can have two meanings as well. The Natzras can mean that similar idea that they were you set the snare to incite my enemies. That's what the translation I have here. But also Natzras in Nazareth, where their savior came from, so to speak. So therefore, the way that we dealt with the early Christians, also, instead of being Makarev them, where you're supposed to, like, it's probably not the same Yeshu. But because I would say you should have been proud, Loki, you should have been Prachya, Shedcho, Yeshu, B'shnei Yodav. He pushed them away with two hands. You have to be careful how you deal with people who go off the derech, or you think went off the derech. You have to make sure. There's the idea of how you deal with Natzras also comes back to haunt you. I will always make sure that you deal with things the right way. But again, it's not clear that that's what it means here. Could just mean that a trap, a snare was laid for me, and Tzakami be made me Ben Dinai Tzadiku Hashem. Ben Dinai is mentioned in the Gemara. Ben Dinai was a robber and a bad person, but he was Jewish, and he was the first Shabtai Tzvi type figure. About 20 years before the Churban Beis Hamikdash, they thought Ben Dinai, Eliezer Ben Dinai, I think his name was, he's going to save us. And a lot of Jews went and they surrounded him and they started rebelling against the Romans. And it was a fascinating thing because he was a bad person. And yet they decided, okay, but he's a tough guy. It's like in the Second World War. So there were Jewish gangsters, and we liked them because they fought against the Nazis. And they what?
Bielski brothers?
Bielski brothers were in. I'll tell you about in America. In America, the Jewish gangsters. What?
The mafias.
Yeah, the mafias, the Jewish mafias. Yeah. So they're gangsters, but there are gangsters. If you're going to the Bialystok Shul, there's the plaque for Bugsy Siegel. Yamin Siegel, whose parents died in the Bialystok Shul. So, okay, we understand the soft spot, but still, the idea is you can't have a Mashiach who's somebody who is a bad person, who's a murderer, who's a thug. So, and that's why they said, you know what, they were Matzikas Adin. We're looking for a Mashiach, that makes sure the Mashiach is the right type of person.
Maybe he did too.
What?
Maybe he did too.
Well, he didn't, because it didn't work out in the end. How many Jews were killed? So that's what he's saying. He's saying, Tzadiku Hashem. We're saying we made a mistake. Atakali michbadata made Yair Muni. You made the ones who are low down. The Chazal says the Mepharshim says it's referring to Bavel, which is called an Am Shafal. They removed from me my crown, the crown of the Beis Hamikdash. But also the commentators say there's a reference to the Chet HaEgel, because the Vayinatzua says Yom Asher Bahar Chorev, and this too we mentioned. Chet HaEgel, from which everything came later on, is mentioned as one of the things which we mourn on Tisha B'Av. You allowed them to come close to me, and they annihilated me. I called the people who I thought were my allies. Karasi Yoshvei Givon. This is the time first Beis Hamikdash. The Givonim were the ones who Yeshua accepted, and they came and deceiving that they came far away. I called for them to come. Odheim Zemuni. They also shoved me away. So, but again, Givon is mentioned as well because there was a Mishkan in Givon. So therefore also allude to Givon as well. After Mishkan Shul was destroyed, it was the Bama was in Nov and Givon. And they, since they didn't help me out, so therefore I was saying goes into Arabia, and this refers also to something which we mentioned later on in the Kinnos about where they gave us those bloated goat skins with no. The first they gave us salty food to eat, and then the bloated goat skins which went into our lungs and suffocated us to death. So Kumi Avori when we tried to call out to our allies, they said. They started mocking us. They said, "Kumi Avori." They mocked. Basel was mocking. They piled upon us. We're not interested in helping you. Karasi Mavai, Hemamiruni. I called to my those I told them the ones who liked me. They didn't help me out.
So that's what happened. That's what's happening today with the United States.
I don't think they say that's true because they sent aircraft carriers and submarines, but we'll see what happens. You know, I'm supposed to fly to Eretz Yisrael tomorrow. I hope that the Americans help us out. So let's not say things, okay? Why Ruach HaPeinu, of course, refers to Yoshio, that we're going to have a special king about him later on. Who's called Ruach HaPeinu. They watched over him to destroy him. There was the Egyptians when they came through Eretz Yisrael, as later on the Kinnos says, they laid an ambush and they killed Yoshio, our king. But besides that, there's another aspect here, I think, which is Ruach HaPeinu is that part of the Golus is on, part of the Churban is on our Ruach. It's not just on our Gufi. It's not just on our bodies. I was going to focus on those tragedies in later Kinnos. But also Ruach HaPeinu, the Ruach of Am Yisrael was in the Beis HaMikdash. And the people destroyed the Beis HaMikdash weren't just after our bodies, they were after our Ruach, after our spirit. And of course, a lot of the spirit, most of the spirit of Am Yisrael was in the Beis HaMikdash. So it's not just our bodies, but also Ruach HaPeinu they were after. So Ra'isa, now we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we say, listen, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you saw. Kisanur Orenu Kamaru, like an oven, our skin became burnt. You see that they did nasty things with anger in that which was your precious place, the place of the Beis HaMikdash called Ibuyach, Hashem's desired place. Ravdi biyadi cheskel imkom k'momaru. You in the hands of Yecheskel, you promised. I did not know this until I actually started preparing yesterday. That Yecheskel is a whole passage in Perek Yecheskel, Perek Chafei, which is all about. He goes to all the goyim who helped destroy the Beis HaMikdash, Ammon, Moab, Edom, Katz, Plishtim, and each one of them he says, you know what? Make sure that they get their comeuppance. Make sure, Kosh Baruch Hu, that they get destroyed themselves. So if it has Yecheskel, you made a riv against them, you come to take revenge in the same way that they were embittered us. They said, let's destroy Am Yisrael. So see Hashem how much anguish they caused me. That my intestines got burnt up. So we're saying to Kosh Baruch Hu, that Kosh Baruch Hu should take the Nekama on our part. And of course, the revenge which we're interested in is not so much revenge of physical destruction, but rather that the Kiddush Hashem should be in proportion to the Chil Hashem which occurred. Hashiveni sisi l'goy tzeani. Now this is interesting, it's sarcastic. It's also taken from it's sarcastic when it appears in Eicha too, in slightly different words. We're saying, be happy to the goy which took me out of Eretz Yisrael, out of Yerushalayim. Shivtam remos chatzeirai latkieni. They who sat and trampled my courtyards to suppress me. Sifsei mishorei devir damu. The lips of those people who sang in the Beis Hamikdash, the Leviim, they silenced lateni to suppress me. Shamato, listen. Zmaros af hechilatateni. That they prepared Zmaros af are like switches of anger. small weapons like daggers, and it's also a pasuk in Yirmiyahu where you use that language. And I think that it's a midah connected midah here, which is we stabbed each other in the back, so they had these small daggers with which they stabbed us in the back. So we're at all these things which happened in the destruction of Beis Hamikdash. Shachvu, we had destruction of Beis Hamikdash. Shachvu v'nadu chatzatz avrieni. This is a very hard line to translate, but we had to lie down on the ground when we were taken to Golus, and we had to bake our food in holes in the ground, and therefore everything we had chatzatz, had gravel in it. So that was physical suffering which was caused as a result of the Golus. And they heard me suffering, all these and people who I thought would be my friends, who turned out to be my enemies, and therefore, we asked that Akash Baruch Hu take the Nekama from them. And why? In the final analysis, Yaakov's image is engraved till today at Akash Baruch Hu's throne of glory. The case of Anecha in the throne which is above the Alfanim. Am Yisrael is more chashav to Kodesh Baruch Hu than the Malachim. So therefore, Tashiv Lehen Gemul Ka'az Chazos Panecha. Then to give them back their reward, in other words, their punishment, because they are like you gave them when we then saw your face. Ka'az Chazos Panecha Rosh Hashiv Chayam Mashlaru Neviim. At the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, there was this tremendous revelation of the Shekhinah, and then there was tremendous destruction of our enemies. So he said, Kodesh Baruch Hu, like then when we saw you, when we beheld you, and you destroy them again. To David Samon, drive them into the gates Hamavis, into the shadow of death. You would say, Raud Tzfunecha, those who have counseled evil on the people who are your precious people, the Tzfunim, who are hidden for you. Give to flames, just like they put in flames our Beis Hamikdash, they destroyed our pearl, our special gem. They should be given to flames. Tikra l'shakam, call out to make them drunk. Kos with the cup, kos at harela, a cup of poison. Kamus bepinecha, which you're hiding. I think I mentioned Parshas Hazinu. That kos which you're hiding until the ultimate bring the gula. Tavo kora sam el lufanecha. So all of their evil should come in front of you, and you should give them back corresponding to all that they did and more. We know it says by Umos Olam, by Rishonim, Kosh Baruch Hu Matzaref Machshava Ra L'Maisa. Hashem takes into account the bad thoughts as if they did it. So Kol Rasan, even whatever they didn't do to us outright, that too they should be punished for that as well. Now, and again, we go back to another tragedy in Am Yisrael. Limvo Chamas b'chemach in Yalanu ad chalach v'chavor higlanu. So we mentioned the goals of Aseret HaShvatim. This is the place where the 10 Shvatim were taken. Again, every golos, every tzorah is mentioned here. Zakein ubachur b'slaku kavalanu. They had no mercy on us. They took the elders, the youth, and we finished the kino with Ram Habeit Namcha Kulanu. You know, a very beautiful metaphor. When we look from down here below, we look at each other and we see we're all very different. And it causes all sorts of problems, which we'll discuss later on. But Ram, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in Shamayim, looks down upon us. And from the viewpoint of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're all one nation. We're all one people. No matter how different we are, no matter how many differences we have, nevertheless, we're all one people. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the final analysis, whoever we are, wherever we've taken the Golus, whatever travails we've suffered, however we're dispersed today, we're all Am Hashem. So therefore, Hashem, remember what happened to us all these years and bring us the Gula. Now I'll say the Kino. Avnei Brosi Tu Chasidecha, Pagei Sitzacho Karusadecha, Pachachim Shilot Kapsadecha, Katsu Chaziyah, Batsu Masel Yoshidecha, Pesot Yom How Tzadu Shemen Tzafura Rishis Ne'enai, Tzumnov Ramot Ze'enai, Tzom Tzras Ne'enai, Tz'akan Ibi Ne'enai, Tzadik Zakarim Yechad Tzadik Karav Kaboy Rav Yachud Karas Yisrael Yishmiya Rav Yachud Kumi Avori Basen Karas Mavai Ramu Rachatem Yotem Yiskim Zemur Yiskim Rav Chanas Yach Avnei Chesed Nachnu Hashidei Sisi Ushma Shiftam Mos Hatziyah Hakim Sisem Shari Tirda Mulu Hakim Shabbat Mos Afrikim Shofru V'Nadu Chatzatz Shalom Kitam Chatmi Kesef Tashiva Gmuk Os Chazos Tidot Tzamo Yotzera Atzuyach Ten Ravam Netzisek Tikron Shakram Kos Kabuski Fanecha Tabokor Asabra Fanecha Tabokor Shekamaru Bo Chamos B'Chemon Yarod Al Chalach B'Chavod Yod Zakin Bafu B'Sirah Kavod Lord my bait Noam Chor Kulanu Shor Adonai The next kino we say is Kino Yud Aleph. The Kino Yud Aleph is one about Yoshio. No, we're not page.
Yeah.
So this is the kina about Yoshio, who was killed by the Egyptians. As you know the story, Yoshio was told by Yirmiyahu, don't go to war against the Egyptians. The Egyptians are just passing through. They want to go and fight the Assyrians. Let them go through. Let them have their battle. Stay home. Yoshio did not listen to Yirmiyahu. He went out. He said, "There's a promise. There's not going to be any sword passing through your nation if we're doing Ratzon Hashem. I think we're doing Ratzon Hashem, so therefore they should not be allowed to go through." And ultimately, he was wrong because there's certain averus which he wasn't able to eradicate. Which Chazal was saying and mentioned here in the Kina that the Avodah Zarah, even though Yoshio sent monitors throughout the land in order to try and ensure that people are not Avodah Zarah, but they had Avodah Zarahs which are carved in the back of their doors. When they opened the doors, so the doors went back and against the walls, and the monitors couldn't see that there are Avodah Zarahs behind the doors. So that's his. He's obviously, even though he was a tremendous Baal Tshuva himself, and he was able to eradicate much of Avodah Zarah and tremendously inspire the people of his generation. Nevertheless, he was not completely successful, and that's why he says at the end that he says Sarik Hashem Kipi Morisi. I should not have done what I did. I should listen to him. So imagine the few reasons why this is so important to us. First of all, Shkula Misat Tzadikim Kusreifas Beis Elokeinu. The death of Tzadikim for us is like the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Because they are the Tiferes Yisrael, they are glory just like the Beis HaMikdash was, and because their loss imperils us on two accounts. First, we lose the lessons which we're supposed to have learned for them, and we lose their zchuyos. But the important thing about Yoshio, specifically related to the Churban, is that Gemara and the Moikatan, I just learned this from my grandson, says that it says that Yoshio's promised he's going to die in a very peaceful and positive way. And the obvious question is he didn't. He died 300. It says they shot 300 arrows at him, and so what does it mean he died in a peaceful, positive way?
No, at who did they shoot 300?
What?
At who did they shoot 300?
The Egyptians shot 300 arrows at Yoshio, and they killed him in battle. That's going to be mentioned in the Kinnos. So the question is, he didn't die in peace. He died in this really nasty way. So they say because No, he died in peace because the Beis Hamikdash was not destroyed in his lifetime. And he was happy, at least the Beis Hamikdash is not destroyed on my watch. And that's the idea that we have to take from here, is that if we don't have the flip side of that, is that if we don't have a Beis Hamikdash, we're not in peace. And anybody who's in a generation where the Beis Hamikdash is not rebuilt, no matter how nice life is for them, they'd have to feel, no, this is terrible. It's worse than what happened to Yoshio. That 300, he was killed by 300 arrows because we don't have the Beis Hamikdash. You be killed by 300 arrows and you die in peace. If you don't have the Beis Hamikdash, no matter how nice peaceful your life is, it's not supposed to be a life in which you feel that you're happy. Again, simcha, yes, but not sason. It has to be this idea that there's something missing. So that's again what you mentioned. That Chazal say that. So you have to have an amma by an amma of open unfinished area in your house when you build a new house. So you have to have not to polish and wear all her jewelry and so on and so forth, because there's always have to feel something missing. We're not in a state of peace. And it says here in the Kinnos that the vakbo avon leitzoni hador. It was a fascinating and very depressing idea, which is he tried his best to be moicha. He sent monitors. What do you want from him? And the idea is that even though it was a chorei, that was the leader of the generation cannot plead ignorance and he cannot plead lack of responsibility. If something is going wrong and we're able to be moicha and we're not moicha, even if we don't know that something is wrong, we always have to be on the lookout to make sure to fix ourselves, and if we're able to fix others as well, because ignorance is not an excuse. And then another reason why the Kinnos is here is because at the end it says that, like he says, Tzaddik Hashem kipiu marisi, because he was the derech olam. We see this all the time, especially in our day and age, as we always blame other people. Everybody says, yeah, well, it's his fault. It's their fault. It's the other guy's fault. It's not me. I'm fine. So therefore, the idea is, you're here today, you're in Tisha B'Av, and you should understand, like Yoshio did, if something went wrong, you're responsible. Don't try and shift the blame. As it said in President Truman's desk, the buck stops here. Everybody has to understand that we're each collectively and individually responsible for the Churban Beis Hamikdash. So not to blame other people. And then we'd say that at the end of the Kinnos, we'd say that since Eicha has 22 letters, and they, the olive base in each of the prakim, and they were especially one about Yoshio, and they were masking with 22 letters. So therefore, the Beis Hamikdash is not destroyed for another 22 years. And the idea is that they did an introspection. They did a complete cheshbon nefesh. Olive base represents a complete introspection and trying to find out what we did wrong. The Rizal Salanter says the period of tshuva really begins with Tisha B'Av, not with Rosh Chodesh Elul. It says Tisha B'Av, we have to start thinking about what we've done wrong, why we're in the Churban. And lots of the slichos also are in the form of olive base. Straight olive base, backwards olive base. Why the olive base? Because from olive to tough, to try and figure out what we did wrong, where we went wrong, what we can fix, what we have to fix. So therefore, if we look from Aleph to Tuf, from beginning to end, and try and understand Mazos, why did this occur, that's something which will help us to fix the situation.
המלכים אשר קמו לדאוג, וכאן קמו ממוס הבידור, לבד בעבור לישראל דורשה חי ואלס קמו לזדור, אם זה שחור, כזמתו כחמו לשחור, וידע עבור בשבעים מן המינכו, עוד לא שלח ירדות מאחור, צקום אליו כנון גסקים, שמו סוף וורשם לא יקיר, חשך לרוב כי יצאו מחכים, ובעצם עושה גס טובים ונקצו חשכו מלך, Mavidulach Hayom Salach, Today I'm going to read Malach, the nation is here. Man goes by Chem Kosher, Define, Lo Shamach, Chuzay, Lo Shul, Achomayim, Tiron Nizor, Sachsech, Mari Kados, Yosis Zos, Kanzon, Ansai, Chechot Zos, No Anonim, Chumol Zos, they say Panov, Suli Dragoshia, Manuso, Mati Sarvashia, Ekaraskara, the Los Alashia, Pairuayavim, Shia, then it's saying now the Gavio, Khasim, Kaitar Rekhim, Imalo Khasim, Son of Samuk Matran Khasim, is a Gubash Rush with us Khasim, it's a Sinachalav, it's a Matapiku, and it's never ash myself, Piu, Plus Masabi, Son Piu, Sadiku Adonai, Risi Piu, Sisi Kanozan, Rishalem Shanam, Bavon Bitzon, Tam Kesematov, I'm Zubin Vashon, Gneilov, Koyachoyu Amzov, Kam Bemikha, Kos Miyarishtos, Neshnas Vital Kiga, Hakelosos, Tolosim Shtein Meloshos, Kisof Loi Chobes, Shtein Melosos, Osos Kinos, Lupchon Mecholim, Ex Vishachachim Mechol, Samosi Kilad Yaili, Rashati Minasati, Tash Ali. The next kino we say is Tezain. Kino Tezain has a lot of content in it, but it focuses first on Titus' desecration of the Kodesh Kodashim, and he goes in and he does all sorts of inappropriate things inside the Kodesh Kodashim. And then it goes on to describe that what's interesting, this was our main source for the fact that the Kaiso Hamaravi remains holy to today, because Kodesh Baruch Hu deliberately left us the remnant of the Beis Hamikdash, and then it goes through the 400 boys and girls who threw themselves into the sea rather than be to take it for immoral purposes. And as I mentioned before, this most Mason are supposed to be shtachach min alev. Eventually, the memory of Mason is supposed to be diminished. But evidently, and we see this throughout Kinnos, that people who die Kiddush Hashem are not supposed to be ever forgotten. And therefore, even thousands of years later, we still have this tremendous sense of loss of these kids who died of Kiddush Hashem, and of course it's just a symbolic of all the kids who died of Kiddush Hashem throughout the generations, all the places, Am Yisrael's Golus. And there's some Kinnos which we don't say, which focus on various different occurrences throughout generations, especially during the Middle Ages, during the Crusades. But the idea is that when people die of Kiddush Hashem, they're not supposed to be forgotten because of two reasons. First of all, they're schus for us, because the death of Kiddush Hashem shows Am Yisrael is fulfilling its mission and its purpose, despite all of the oppression. And besides that, they're also a model for us. We have to remember that we're here to be Mekadeh Shem Shamayim, and it requires death, Rachmana litzlan, and we die at Kiddush Hashem. That's why we're here. That's the purpose of Am Yisrael in this world. הפסח הרבי יסחל לבוא, והרבו אבשי תשרוב לחבו, עצמו אבי לזכר יציב בו, לצורך הכוסלנו, ולצפתי שסלוס, אם שם בהם כל מאום ומשם בקלוס, לא מרקשי גלים לו שחטה בחברוס, שמייצאו כשלוס ונוס, השיבנו שיבול כבואל ונתחיה, שיבת מצמום יחד עם פה ביום, סיר בששפחו שלו כיום, כי הולך הרגנו לצילוס יום, כי סמוס בהם נפשם, כזס פרסנו ולא שכחנוך ושכחנוכו, כאילו ממשון, וכבסם נסנו למשיב לי בשון, ופס כל לשמו, אורה, למה סישון.
The next keynote is actually very graphic in describing all the terrible things which underwent. It's interesting having the keynote from Rabbi Yoshe the keynote from Yoshe Soloveitchik. He writes here, it's about one of the paragraphs here, it says, "Vatikshanos susim porchim," they're being tied to racing horses. As the phrase is an allusion to the story told by the Medrash of Bab Miriam Bas Betus. She was bound to the tail of a horse, and when the horse began to gallop, she was killed. This atrocity was perpetrated not only 1900 years ago, but in our time as well during the Holocaust. In fact, it happened to a cousin of mine, he writes. Yisrael Glickson, whose father was Herbst Glickson, and whose mother was the daughter of Chaim Brisk. I knew Yisrael, who was slightly younger than I, very well. He was a righteous person and a great scholar. When the Nazis conquered Warsaw and found him and his wife, it was the first week after their wedding. The Nazis tied him to one automobile, his wife to another, and then drove off at high speed. And of course, which of course resulted in their gruesome deaths. This is precisely this precise same story told by the Kina, and we know that the cruelty of the Ukrainians, the Lithuanians, the Latvians was worse than the Germans. Even the Germans couldn't imagine how terrible the local population was towards the Jews, and the Jews that lived among them for hundreds of years. And yet the sinner was this tremendous sinner, and the suffering and the tortures, the stories they tell of things like happened in Kovna in the Ninth Fort when they tortured the Jews for days before killing them. And the point is, all these things which he described here about having to eat their own children and dying of hunger and hundreds of thousands of people being killed randomly. These are all things which Am Yisrael has gone through in recent years as well. And Rabbi Soloveitchik was against putting in a kina for the Holocaust. We say a kina for the Holocaust. Obviously, we say we're say kina for the 7th of October because we believe that it causes Hisayrus, and that's the main idea of Tisha B'Av. But his idea was, first of all, he held that kina should only be written by Rishonim. Achronim don't have the right to write kinas. Just like there's a limit on tefillos, a certain period in Am Yisrael's history, that's when the siddur was closed. It's a big machlekes between the Gra and others, whether tefillos by the Goinim even, Baruch Hashem Yoel, should be said or not said. The Goinim had the right to put in tefillos into the siddur. But certainly he held that kinos had to be written by the Rishonim. But regardless, the point is that, again, these are things which we look at and we're supposed to think this tremendous Chil Hashem and the tremendous suffering of Am Yisrael has to be a kapara for us, it has to be a schus for us, and it has to be, the Chil Hashem is terrible, Hashem should bring the Gula. And therefore when we think about this kina and say the things which happened back then, it's not just things about happened back then, we have to think about all the tsaras which happened throughout Am Yisrael's history. And here I want to make a point which is, it says, at the end of the kina, which is a fascinating thing. It says, "V'ruach hakodesh mula marim." The Ruach hakodesh responds to Am Yisrael. You mentioned all the tzaras which happened to you. Okay, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let's get real about this. Hoya kosh chanei roim. Woe to me, all my. The Shekhinah says, "Woe to all my bad neighbors." That's you. It's like to the Jews. It says, "Ma'aseh yikru modim." That which happened to them, they tell us. There's a sharasu lo modim. They don't say what they did. Yeah, they say that the women have to eat their children. But what about the fact that you killed Zechariah ben Brachia on the base of Mikdash, who was a Kohen and a Navi? What about that? How can we don't mention that? Am Yisrael. You have kindness against me, I have kindness against you. So it's a very strange way to end the kinna. But that's and besides, what's so bad? Okay, we killed the Kohen in the oven, the Beis Hamikdash. Big deal. That's the Shekhinah has to answer us about all the suffering. So it's an interesting lesson we have in Nachem today. Say, Libi achal aleim, may I achal aleim. My heart goes out to the casualties. My stomach goes out to the casualties. So what's A, why the duality? B, what's the difference? So it's Perish Dover Shalom and the Siddur. It's a beautiful shot. I'm embellishing it a bit, but he says there are two different types of reactions to tragedies. One is with the heart, and one is with the stomach. But we talk about a gut feeling, something which is gut wrenching. That's the mei chaleim. But there's an attempt to understand why things happen. That's the libi, my bina, my isbonanus, which comes from the lave, is achaleim. And of this whole kina is a gut reaction. It is gut wrenching. It's a raw emotional and devastating depiction of tragedy. Because Baruch Hu says, yes, but you have to have libi achaleim as well. Understand why things happen. And Kosh Baruch Hu says, I'll tell you why things happen. He said, you had a Kohen. The Kohen represents some say the Kohen Gadol, the height of spirituality. He was a Navi. A Navi represents the height of morality. The Nevi'im, that was there. And it's the Beis Hamikdash, the place of the greatest Kedusha. So you have, in the Beis Hamikdash, the place of the greatest Kedusha, the Kohen is the greatest Ruchnius. And the Navi is a paragon of Musar. And he tells you doing something wrong. And what do? You kill him. And it says, this is obviously this is a terrible thing that Aaron says, Chazal said, was willing to build the Egel Azov, so he shouldn't be killed. Because he was killed. They already killed Chur, who was the Navi. Now they're going to kill me, I'm a Kohen. And then Am Yisrael is going to have no hope. So what we're being told is that if you don't take Musar, even in the most optimal circumstances, in the Beis Hamikdash, by Kohen, by Navi, then what are we talking about? What kind of a nation are you? How do you represent me in this world? I was thinking that the main avera of the Churban, after all said and done, is the bittul mitzvah sasei abasei l'charav. We don't think about it that way, but there's mitzvah sasei abasei l'charav. It's okay. It's a mitzvah sasei in Pirkei Avos, but there's asei l'charav, and Rambam says knei l'chachavar is the same thing. Because Rambam says knei l'chachavar means if you can't find a rabbi, find a friend. If you can't find a rabbi, it's going to be mochiach you. You have to have a friend who's going to be mochiach you. Find a friend who's going to do the same thing for you. So the idea is that every person in this world needs to have somebody who they accept as a mochiach. Somebody who they go to and say, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I'm doing right too. But tell me what I'm doing wrong and I'll listen. I'm going to listen to you. And Am Yisrael is an Am K'shei from the beginning. We don't like that.
So you have a wife.
What?
So you have a wife.
So your wife. Okay. Do you listen to her? That's a start. Okay. The Ishmael says that when Adam said to about Haishash and Sati Madi, he says he's right. Had Adam Arishon Taka ate because he listened to his wife, he would have been off the hook, but he didn't mean it. He just was using an excuse. So yes, if you actually listen to your wife, l'shem shamayim, you're a big man. So the idea is, of course, that asay l'charav b'knei l'chaver means that you have to have make for yourself. Akadosh Baruch Hu says, I send you a Kohen, I send you a Navi, I send you the Beis Hamikdash. You need to have somebody, and today especially there's so many people you can have. We have people here, Bali Eitza, we have big Talmidei Chachamim, and the Ramah says, of course, the Sfarim, all the Sfarim which we have, they're all part of Asay l'charav. There is this idea that a person has to have somebody who is the person, or is the entity, or is the role model, or is the hero, which you accept this tochacha and you want to be a better person, and he makes you a better person, alive or dead. You can have a dead role model too, dead hero. But there has to be somebody, and if you don't have somebody, so Kosh Baruch says, so what am I supposed to do with you? I sent you all the messages I could. I sent you Mochiach. Where did you take the Rav I sent you? Did you find another Rav? You just killed the messenger. So what am I supposed to do with you? There's nothing I can do with this nation. So that is the fascinating thing that the Sweet Ace says. It says, you know what the Beis Hamikdash was? He says, Am Yisrael is etzem, a nation of rugged individualists. We're meant to be that way. We're supposed to be individualists. Every Jew is supposed to be a unique world unto himself. B'shvili nivra olam. Literally. But the Beis Hamikdash united us. The Beis Hamikdash was someplace where we would all go and become part of one entity and one mission, one unity. Lack of the Beis Hamikdash means we don't have that anymore, and that's why we have the divisiveness which we have to this very day. But the idea is that asay l'cha rab, and if you don't have a rab, and I don't mean again literally a rabbi, it could be a chaver, it could be a wife, it could be a sefer. But if you don't have a mochiach, and Hashem sends you, especially because we see Hashem sent a mochiach in the most obvious place, the greatest credentials. So Kosh Baruch Hu says, you know what? You can't complain about your suffering. You're messing up. What am I supposed to do with you? So that's why the Kina ends specifically saying that you have to know. Find yourself a way to become a better person. Find yourself a way to become better people. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this for a long time. The next thing we say is Arzei Levanon, Chaf Aleph, and of course it's all about the Sorul Yamachos. It's interesting to know, of course, that Sorul Yamachos did not all happen at one time. Most of them actually happened after the Bar Kokhba rebellion, which is the decades after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, when and later on in B'Tzeisim and Mitzrayim, the one emperor we mentioned as a eternal symbol of wickedness is not Vespasian or Titus, but is Hadrian, who was the emperor at the time, especially the Bar Kokhba revolt. I just learned some history this past week. I'm making a series out of it on YouTube because it's amazing history. Actually, Hadrian gave permission to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash and bring korbanos. And at the time of Hadrian, at the beginning, just before the Bar Kokhba rebellion, the Am Yisrael started going back to the Beis Hamikdash, and there was a tremendous amount of people who came on Lila Rego. Everybody thought things were on the upswing again, that the Gula was imminent. That's why Rabbi Akiva thought, okay, Bar Kokhba has got to be Mashiach, because look how things are going so fast, swimmingly, and all of a sudden they're going to go down the tubes. There's several rayas for this from Chazal. One raya for it, which I want to mention, is amazing raya. It says that Ben Zoma, when he saw the prayer yesterday, I got it from my WhatsApp, the brachas you're going to make when Mashiach comes. My name is Chacham HaRazim, when he sees 600,000 Jews gathered together. So Ben Zoma made this bracha when he was in Har HaBayis. Ben Zoma lived well after the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. Ben Zoma was the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. He was a youngster at the time of the Bar Kokhba rebellion. So when did he make this bracha? The Beis HaMikdash was destroyed many decades earlier. So this is one of the riots. There's many riots that actually I saw it started coming up on Aliyah L'Regel again at the time of en masse, at the time of Hadrian. The Beis HaMikdash is not fully rebuilt, but Chazal talk about they put up curtains, what they did there in order to make something like walls, and the Mizbeach was evidently still intact. So the actual complete destruction of Beis HaMikdash, when Yerushalayim was plowed under and was made into Beis HaMikdash made into a temple for foreign gods, only happened after the time of Hadrian, after the time of the Bar Kokhba rebellion. Most of us are really Malchus were killed at that time. There's one thing which I want to focus on here, which is B'chutzvis HaTurgamon. B'chutzvis HaTurgamon, it says here
so many false starts on Mashiach. I don't know what it's actually going to be.
We don't. It's a big problem.
Very disconcerting.
It's very, very scary. Yes, to be prepared to realize that this might not be it. Of course, one of the things we don't say is the king immediately afterwards. Just talk about how similar things happened at the time of the Crusades. So the says that about Rabbi Chutzpis HaTurgamon. Can't find it right now, of course. Yeah, so the Chazal said Acher went out the Tarbus Ra. One of the reasons Acher went out and became an Apikoros, so to speak, because what exactly he denied is that he saw the Tangarei Chutzis HaTurgamon being in the street being eaten by dogs, and he said Zutar Zuschara, and he went to the Tarbus Ra. And Acher is a fascinating person in Shas, as obviously Chazal were very concerned with him, and he was very distinguished Talmid Chacham, Elisha ben Abuya. So I think that there's an interesting lesson we can learn specifically from Acher, that Acher was bothered, which is that he was bothered by things. He was he came to the wrong conclusions. But the reason why we come to the right conclusions is very often not because we actually think about things, it's because we don't think. And the idea, so one of my rabbeim, his name was Reb Tzuriel, his first Yortzai, he was one of Mashgiach and Shavim, he brings that the Ikar Mush, I forget who he's quoting, but the Ikar Musha ben Torah, B'kach shu choshev. The main character of a ben Torah is that he thinks. The Ma'amar Mordechai, which was one of the Achronim, Spatan Bir Allah, he says, you know what, if it was up to me, I'd be matter learning at Tisha B'Av. Because nobody thinks about learning anything anyway. When they're not in the Kinnos, they're just going around and schmoozing. They're going to chatter, they're going and doing idle things, right? Actually, not that we have videos and other things you could do even with not during time Kinnos, but he says, what's it worth if people are not thinking anyway about the Korban? I might as well have them learn. So, okay, we're not matter learning on Tisha B'Av nevertheless, but the idea is that you have to think. And without thinking, and Rabbi Yerucham says that the Churban, the Beis HaMikdash, for us, is based. It says, quoting this, he says that it's people don't. It doesn't make any impression on anybody. It says Tisha B'av has become almost like a regular day, or even a day after he says Elitzio. They make a party out of it after they finish Elitzio. Very strange. We saw about the Mir Yeshiva, but he's saying that people don't think. People are not Sam Alev. That's what it says. That the person, the tzaddik makes ein adam ein ish Sam Alev. The person has to have sensitivity and thought. And the idea is that even though there's danger sometimes in thinking, and that's why it's very easy for us to try and suppress thinking. And my daughter once came home from school. I wrote a whole article about this because it bothered me so much. Where a girl asked a question in class, says, "Hani nashim ma'mayzachin? How do women get to Olam Haba by their husbands on the Torah? What if you never get married or never have kids?" And the teacher said, "I get this question every year, and we don't answer this question because we don't encourage that lifestyle, which is the most ridiculous thing in the world." But yes, there is this trend which we have in our meisters to discourage thinking, and when you discourage thinking because you're afraid you're going to end up with an acher, so then you end up with people who don't think about what they're supposed to be thinking. And the idea of Kinnos is to focus on what we're missing and ask questions. Eicha, the word, the first two prakim of Eicha are Eicha. Why? How does this possibly happen? You have to ask the questions. Find the questions. Sometimes the answers are not going to be the best answers. It's true. Sometimes the answers for some people are not going to answer questions, but that's not a heter not to ask the questions. If we don't ask questions, we won't find answers. If we don't ask questions, we won't understand what went wrong. And therefore, everything comes to something which is supposed to provoke us to thought. And therefore, what Rucham says, one of the main points of Tisha B'av is to be makabel to learn Musar. Because Musar makes things relevant and makes a person question things about themselves, about the world. And therefore, something to take out of Kinnos is to take Kinnos as Musar and to try and understand that from today we go on, as we go towards Yom Noraim, with an idea of trying to learn and experience Musar. Like I said, the main Avera is not a Seil Charav, not finding somebody to ask you questions and to whom you will ask questions. And to try and think about things, why, who, what, when, where, but especially why and how we can fix them.
So cool be so cool like the beam look bad call bass your store up the club haben khaki neu nach was die zu gut bis wir haben ja auf aber aber please sagen sei kann das mit schon mal machen der wir schon was ja ist mit dieser Geschichte kann schon wohl aber nicht über hin sein das heißt was soll wir wollen hin mit selber so hey noch einmal sie wollen mehr wollen das ist das ist verhält kein Bukharisch aber das heißt die Männer ja gut selbst ja كما كان كداش خداس كان لا بيت خزيت نفا شو كاتما تقول يا بقى يتابعني أنا بدو يوسف أولي أسرع أميت بكان كشواس خيرك يا أبو بشير بيسوا بتسالك يمرخ ملخ يشبوي مبلخ وروني صعب نلخ. By the way, the end of the keynote says that ends with the request for Mashiach. B'tzedek yimloch melech. So looking for the reason, one of the reasons we look for Mashiach is because he's the ultimate Rebbe, the ultimate Tzedek. The Tzedek will be brought back by Mashiach. In the next keynote, which we say, which is Chavav. It's the Shakra B'Tari between is fascinating about Shakra B'Tari between Yirmiyahu and the Avos and that was the Kodesh Baruch Hu. But in the end of the keynote, is just the last paragraph, the last couple paragraphs of Moshe Rabbeinu, Tainus HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Leah, Rachel, Zilpah, and Bilhah, and ultimately the discussions didn't do any good. The raw emotions. It's interesting because Moshe Rabbeinu is likened here, like it says in the Torah. He's like the Sona Shebecheki Ha'aman. Kashi saw Amenas Hayonek. So the focus is on Moshe Rabbeinu's mothering role of Klal Yisrael. So the idea is that the Moshe and the Mos come with emotion. They say, Kodesh Baruch Hu, maybe you're right about everything. Maybe all the things that Am Yisrael did wrong, they did wrong. Like I said before, but we feel the tremendous pain. And the tremendous pain, you have to be menachem us. We need nechama. And the Kodesh Baruch Hu, that's actually what Kodesh Baruch Hu says. You know what? I'm also suffering the pain. Shlach li bavel l'manchem. I'm with Baal. I am in Golus with you. So ultimately, part we're saying is that the Avelus in and of itself is something which, whether we understand and the reasons, and even though we understand the reasons, and even though Kodesh Baruch Hu is right, Tzadik Hashem, nevertheless, the tsar is so great, and if we feel the tsar to such an extent, the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, if your tsar is real, and your anguish is true, you're really misabel, then that brings about the gula. Mobium ya, Vitibuam or ya, Racing Sodia, Allah, Shah, Ekatapapi, Haskaya, Madame of Greece, Excuse, Sakula, and Tele, those Kitsanis the lake. Elisha be packed together, Ekazum, many Tele, Ekafra, many, Damim, Kama, Elef, Selchem Rein. Patzler Neymar, Kapush Baifel Neymar. So the Sheb Chiki Haman, Eko Zugulos Man. Kayef Chaski Laman. Adam Level Greece. Kol Bechile Yom Sotem Salvador. Chelacho Somi Bakaba Nea. Sipo Makop Anea Bilam Kresh Yodea. Shuv Zinidu Chasechem. Malem Leikom Shosechem. Shachti Bavel Manchem. Yini Moshe Yeshovei. Kalus Mechem. The next keynote is really basically is the contrast between the contrast between the Yitzias Mitzrayim and the Yitzias Yerushalayim. I just want to point out at the very end of the keynote, as we said before. Which one is it? Slam it out, right? Again, simcha we can have even in Golus, because the simcha is in the heart, but the sason ultimately comes back b'shuvu Yerushalayim, and then then all the external avelus, which all the external tzara which we're suffering today, will stop because of that sason. Mitzvah Shem when you go back to Yerushalayim.
Kina Lamed Daled, which next one we say the focus is really on the blood of Zechariah. We mentioned, of course, before the blood of Zechariah, the Mikra Hashem Kohen Benavi, but also the focus is on Vuzar Adon. It's called the Rav Tabachim, the master butcher who killed all the Jews in order to get the blood of Zechariah to stop boiling in the Beis Hamikdash. The fascinating thing about the Vuzar Adon, and perhaps the theme of this kina, is Vuzar Adon became a ger tzedek. So I'll say he went away from all this, and he became a ger. Became a ger tzedek. Became a Jew. So we don't understand. It's saying we don't understand why terrible things happen to us. We know that there are the reasons for the Churban, but we can't know the reasons for in detail for why all these millions of people were killed. But we see that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has very strange plans, and somehow if we can make head of Teva, that's icing on the cake. And because we see that from the great slaughter of the Rav Tabachim, we got to get a tzedek. The Chazal say that God the Churban Bnei Banav Shel Sancherib Limdu Tarbu Rabim. So the Bnei Banav Shel Haman Limdu Tarbu Bnei Brak. The Kiva comes from Sisra. The Chazal say beginning of Parshas Chukas Mitei Tor Mitome. There is a master plan. Bad things happen, but there is a good purpose for them, which you don't necessarily see until many years later. And you don't necessarily see how it's proportional. But there is something there. The founding of the state of Israel, the flourishing of Torah, all those things which happen as a result of the Holocaust. Do they explain the Holocaust? They don't. Of course they don't explain it. But there are things where you see that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a plan. The things which things happen as in this world for a reason, even we don't understand that. We're supposed to try to understand it as much as possible. But we can't, because the Zohar Kodesh says, the darkness has light, and that light is incomparable to any other light because it came out of and was made out of darkness. Has two meanings. First of all, when you come to the end of the tunnel, the light is very sweet. Besides that, it's made from the darkness comes the light. Sometimes you have to get, and I know what Nebuchadnezzar did once he became a ger. As I would say, also Nero became a ger. We don't know what he did once he became a ger, but again, says the very mayor, somehow this was connected to Nero. Who knows? But there is, Kodesh Baruch Hu has a plan. Sometimes we can see it. Sometimes we see it, we can't grasp it. But ultimately, there is this idea of Kodesh Baruch Hu, even with the Golus, Hashem is a plan. And Tzaddik says, again, well, things you don't understand, but Talmud Bavli has been in Golus. Because the Medrash says, Yosef Tzadim immediately b'chilbana, Yosef b'bin Yonah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a plan for this. It was a part of the as we reach the end of the Kinnos, we have to try and understand that, yes, we're not veilus, but understand there's a purpose for all this. So now we go to Lamed Vav Tzion Lo Tishali. So the truth is that we're all Zionists, and so it's, that before the name was usurped by others, everybody was a Zionist, because we say we have this king of Tzion Lo Tishali. When Chazal say it's a pasuk, by the way, it's not a pasuk. When we go to Chutz La'aretz, it's supposed to keep mitzvahs, even though Chutz La'aretz, the Torah says, because it's Tzivilach Tziyuni. You have to make for yourself markers. And the folk of Tzion is our main marker, although one of our main markers, the other was Torah, which is going to be the next king, we say, but as Am Yisrael. And Ki Mitzion Teitzei Soira. From the Torah and Tzion are intrinsically connected. So unlike other nations in their Golus, when we're in Golus, we remain Mitzuyonim. We have this marker of being B'nai Tzion. And a person can go through life without markings. You can go anonymously, incognito. But markings help identify a person to others and also identify a person to himself. So even if we are not Zoichet to live in Yerushalayim, we're supposed to visit there. It's in Eretz Yisrael. We're supposed to visit there. That was the idea, even the time Beis Hamikdash existed, of Aliyah L'Regel. Not everybody can live in Eretz Yisrael, not everybody can live in Yerushalayim, but that is supposed to be our focal point, our focus. And even if we can't visit there, even if we can't get there, nevertheless, Baal Shem Tov said, "B'makom shemachshavto shel adam shamu kol adam." A place where a person's thoughts are, that's where the entirety of a person is. So a person is always supposed to be thinking about being in Eretz Yisrael, about being in Yerushalayim. That is the place where Am Yisrael belongs. That is the place where mitzvahs are optimal, not Chutz La'aretz. This story I heard, I think I heard it directly from Simcha Cook. That's, if not, I heard it in his name. He was once visiting the house in Chutz La'aretz. He came to a house where he didn't necessarily trust the kashrus so much, and they gave him an apple. I was thinking, how can I eat an apple? What are trumas and maasros? And then he realized, I'm a Chutz La'aretz. It's not a problem. He said to himself, in Eretz Yisrael, even the fruit wears yarmulkes. So the main place where mitzvahs apply in their fullest extent is Eretz Yisrael. And therefore, we have to constantly think as if we're in Eretz Yisrael and realize that wherever we go, we are in Golus from Tzion. Our marker as Jews is a mark of being B'nai Eretz Yisrael. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda Levi wrote the next Kina, himself says, Libi ma mizrach v'anochi b'sof ma'arav. Even though I'm at the end of the west, he lived in Spain, which is the end of the west of the time, my heart is in the east. So, and if it works both ways, that's why the Kino says, Tzion aloti shali l'shlom asirayich. Right? We're all Asirei, all prisoners of Zion, but the way he puts it, Asirei tikva. We're imprisoned in our hope to want to go back to Eretz Yisrael. And if we are concerned with Eretz Yisrael, haloti shali l'shlom asirayich is concerned with us. It says, Eretz Hashem Hashem Lekecha Doresh Osah, part of the land which Hakadosh Baruch Hu is Doresh, constantly concerned with Eretz Yisrael. But from there goes out the Shefa to the rest of the world, and especially to people who are connected with Eretz Yisrael. Again, B'makashem Moshavto Shel Adam Shamu Kol Adam. So therefore, the idea of this Kina is that Am Yisrael is going to spend the reality was that Am Yisrael is going to spend most of his existence in Golus, and most of Am Yisrael is going to be in Golus, and even in Eretz Yisrael, there's certain elements of Golus as well. But the main point here of the Kina, and several Kinas afterwards, which we don't say, is that we're always Mitsuyonim. We always have to remember that we're B'nai Tzion. We find ourselves in other lands, and we have to live as full citizens of lands, like Yirmiyahu Navi says, but ultimately, we are B'nai Tzion. Tzion is the place where as the Kina describes graphically, where Kedusha and Shechina are to be found. It says there's a Lashon in Kinnos Tishtapechna Amnei Kodesh B'chol Reish Kol Chutzos. And it's a story tells by Reb Zevin. I forget which Rebbe, about which Chosim, which Rebbe. He said a certain darshan came to Chutz La'aretz and said that in Eretz Yisrael the streets are paved with gold. He used to say about America as well. And so a Chassid went to wherever it was, went to Eretz Yisrael, and he came back into Chutz La'aretz. He said to the darshan, he said, it's not true. I went there. I didn't see that there's gold in the streets. So the darshan said, Misha Zocher Roeh. Somebody merits sees it. And he says, again, according to the way the story goes, Chassid got tremendous fright, went back, worked on himself, and then he came back and said to the darshan, you know what, you're right. I saw it. So it's Re'ei B'tuvi Yerushalayim. So obviously, when a person goes to Eretz Yisrael, a person can not see that Kedusha as well. A person can be blinded to it. But the Kedusha is there, and the Shechina is there, and Rabbi Yehuda Levi says in the Shechina that in order for us to have whatever Shechina we have in Chutz La'aretz, it has to come because of our connection to Eretz Yisrael, and Eretz Yisrael should always be foremost, and of course, especially times of Tsar, she foremost and uppermost in our thoughts.
Shikra, Shech Hamsech, it's called Livav, it's Shoraya. Silky Asiofi, Abba, came to Chimas, Rocky Chimas, Shokarai, Sim Shamasech, Lima Shamasech, Rocky Shoraya. We both shopping again, we start having Shikra, every the Shoraya, and Jay Hashem, Spazini Hagiba, Shibulai, Hamas, Shalai, Sanskima, Los, the Chos, Mike, no Pasay, Kuchen, and Gamba, Lam Yidnu, Samai, me the Mushikaya, and me the Yaka, me the Yaka, Sarai. He says, Shnebi Achaf Kriya, Come Achos Eliyah, Kos Nech, the love, the door, the darkness, and Sarai. Yivachar Mashab, Eliyah, Asher no Shukhay, Yichay, Shkom Chatayich, Asher Chaker Yagila, Yireh, Alos Parech, V'kolai, Alav Shukharayich, V'los V'tavas V'kirayich, V'alos V'simchasech, V'shurech Elei, Kanos L'rayich. So the basically the last of the old time kinnos, which we say it's Sefer Liot son is Shali Sufa Beish Lamed Vav. That was on book. The mouth, which is about the running of the 24 cartloads of the Talmud in Paris in 1242 by King Louis, who's from the town of St. Louis, his name. So the big saint. So from as a result of which we have only one complete manuscript of the Bavli and one complete manuscript of the Yerushalmi. Everything else is fragments because of everything which is burnt. And Marami Rudenberg wrote a kinna based on Sion Aloti Shali, based on the kinna B'Gilei for Eretz Yisrael, on the Torah, which of course, like we said, they're connected together. Kimitzion Teitzi Torah, they're not separate. So I want to speak for a few moments about this, about the idea behind the burning of the Talmud, which is Rabbeinu Yoina said that the reason why the Talmud was burned was because they burnt, and he participated in the burning of the Kisvei Rambam. They burned the Rambam, Moreh Nevuchim, and I think even the Mishnah Torah because of the Moreh Nevuchim. And Rabbeinu Yoina wrote the Shari Tshuva as an act of tshuva for having participated in the burning of the Rambam, and realized that as this was the cause for the Mida Kneged Mida, the burning of the Talmud. And obviously they thought they were doing L'Shem Shamayim when they burnt the Rambam. I'm sure he thought he was doing L'Shem Shamayim. He was doing Ratzon Hashem, but obviously he realized afterwards that he was wrong. That it was not Ratzon Hashem. So people could think that the things they're doing things L'Shem Shamayim. In reality, they're very far from L'Shem Shamayim. There's the famous word for Bisol Salat. He says, "Kol machlekes L'Shem Shamayim sofi l'skayim." He says, if two people argue, they don't think L'Shem Shamayim. Just saying to argue for the sake of arguing, maybe they'll make peace eventually. It's people who think that they were both L'Shem Shamayim, that machlekes is sofi l'skayim, because they're never going to actually realize that their machlekes was wrong because they think it was L'Shem Shamayim. And the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed primarily, essentially, because of the kanos of the biryonim, of the zealots, as they're called in English, the kanoim, who determined that they're going to go to war, even though the chachamim were against the war, even though the chachamim said it's not going to be successful, and they forced the war, as we know, by burning down the storehouses in Yerushalayim, which could have lasted for decades, in order to force the issue, and as a result caused a major amount of famine and suffering. And people think L'Shem Shamayim, as long as there's L'Shem Shamayim, everything is mutter. There is no barrier to what people will do. And this is including to cause famine and war. And we see that today, and it's not something which ever, unfortunately, has stopped. And even though Am Yisrael is full of tremendous chasadim, people do tremendous chesed to each other, and people are especially in this United States today, people are unified, and they're individuals and groups which do a tremendous amount of chesed and tov, and have a sense of achdus and a sense of a mission and purpose, which is of unity. Nevertheless, there are always kanoim who say that the other people are rishoyim. We're tzaddikim, they're rishoyim. They are the root cause. We're perfectly fine. If you listen to us, everything will be fine. If you listen to them, everything is going to be wrong. And there is people
think that they are right to the extent that they not just argue with other people, but deny the humanity, deny the significance, deny the Shem Shamayim of other people as well. And the only way, in order to get out of all these problems, is to be Mavir Amidosav. It's for a person not to be a kanoi, a person not to get angry, upset, not to try and take revenge. Even if a person takes a stance in Shem Shalom, it's not worth it. Is not just for individuals, but it's also for Am Yisrael. And it's interesting because a person can be an onav and still be a kanoi. It's not a question of being modest and humble, because Rabbi Yisrael ben Avkilus was a very big onav. And it says that the Sanusa show Rabbi Yisrael ben Avkilus was brought about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash, because he wouldn't allow that carbon which Bar Kamsa brought to be brought, because he said they're going to say him his bag is eating Bali Mub. So a person, it says there, his anava, he didn't want to take, was destroy the Beis HaMikdash. His anava led to a Maisa Kanos as well, which is a fascinating counterintuitive thing. But a person can't just say, I'll just be humble, and therefore everything will be fine. No, in your humility, you can also be inadvertently a kanoi. What a person has to do is, a person has to be deliberately, be consciously, be willing. There's no English word for it. In the Yiddish, the word to fargin, which means to forego and be willing to tolerate others and tolerate other perspectives, and tolerate also things which to you seem to be inappropriate, because in the long run, you never can tell. Maybe what you think is appropriate is actually going to destroy the Beis HaMikdash. And that comes back to what we said before. In order for a person to understand what to do, a person has to actually have a Rav, a Rebbe, a Moreh Derech, a person to look to, of somebody to check out with if what I'm doing is the right thing, and what I'm doing is, I think it's the Shem Shamayim, or just misplaced kanos, misplaced inappropriate behavior. And one other thing, which before we say the Kina, I saw a beautiful idea. It was just this morning, early this morning, was it late last night, or this morning, I remember already. But the name of Lubavitcher rabbi in Australia, his name was Rabbi Moshe Gurari. He said, in darkness, everything is dark, and it's tremendous chisar. And it's a horrible, horrible thing to live in darkness. But there's 1 mile in darkness. In darkness, when it gets very dark at night, you can see stars which otherwise you couldn't see. Certain stars which come out only when it's extremely dark, because they're very faint. He says that when we're in darkness and things are not going well, sometimes those stars which otherwise we wouldn't have noticed, we're able to see them. And it's important for us always to be, because this is what Kodesh Baruch Hu wants us to do, to build up others, and to build up schusim by trying to find the positive in things. And if we do mess up, obviously to fix them. But this, when we come to think about how to apply the lessons of Kinnos of the past to today, so the idea are, especially when we come to issues of contention, issues of difficulty, issues of politics especially, to try and find the light in the darkness, to ignore all the negative and look for the positive. We'll talk about that before the end of Kinnos and Hashem, a little bit in greater detail. Shall we?
Adon Adino Tisha of Namro Vashke, Nebra, Adino Tisha of Namro Yosem of face and dust to do slang, the same beauty could up, made in some slang. Some of the Shabbat Chom, Shabbat knows the first shade, but can't have it. Kazim with his casting nine, the Bushach, the Susak, that day, the Bush, the Bush, makes him right. With most ideally, and after the beauty Bush makes him right. Sharon, the Horror, the Shaish, the Rocha, the Shah, can't see the right. Kodesh Shiva, Kshar, Hadilash, Kiskan, the Seiko, Yogi, the right. Kadalu Chos, or Shagabi, Batom, so Ishdas. אז זה תשלום כלייך. צאנך שיחי אבכי אחור אחרי רוסי אשר עשו שלייך. תורך חבקי תחס וספו שלל עליון שתימאס רוד כלייך. וידיים צודר סולה אחי היו אבילוס וסיגו יושן סלייך. איתה בפי מדרש למסור משכן מוס אבי היוס קבו כלייך. ירד בעיניי שוב מים מים ידי כל וכל מחזיק ותנפי לייך. אחרו ואיתם ערכי אבוך נקמו לחמי לא בלייך. הקצר גסולך בדרך מחוק ימור אמון לסוס לייך. שלו גמור נשאר לבדיין, שלוש הרבי בלייך. שמע כל שנים ושלום סריקים נזכו מסרים תלותך ולייך. הבת שנסקס בסקים דיבור יקרו עצמו ככל יביאו נפשוס לייך. אסמם אמור היום אשר יסק תלכו ויחשך אלייך. זעקי בכל מעל לצורה שיבך עליה. ולא יזכור המס לייך. כי ביס נשיב ונשתק. יעברו אשר לצורך המק לסבסוס לייך. אם עושה נושא הכין החמק צור ושישבו שיטי שנים שלייך. קדי בעדי שנים וזוב סתיקחי תכין מחוב צליב ולחלייך. הוא מביא בעץ סורי ואור לך יגיע לחושך. והוא אף אלייך. Which Kinnos did we say now for today?
Memhei.
What?
Memhei.
No, we said it was the Holocaust.
Unless you did it with Schwab, you did this either one,
So if you're looking for Rabbi Schwab's Kinnos, it's on page in this.
Articles 390. That's 390 is Memhei.
That's not the. In this one, it's page 108.
We're doing Schwab or
Rabbi Schwab, yeah.
I don't have one of them.
Here, take one of these.
It's right before Memhei.
What?
We have an article, it's right before
I have
Memhei.
article, yeah.
Right before Memhei.
Oh, right before Memhei? Oh yeah, I got it. 386, yeah.
הזוכר מזכירו בקדושה, מעץ אשר אז בחרתנו, יזכרון של דור אחרון, אוי המהר בנו, שטופי מבול דם שמסרו נפשם, כל שקלי עמקי הבכור, קדם לי בארצות זכים, ועדי עד זכרם לברכה. סלוב כפיים, אוי שמיים, אוי המתחשתי יעקב, שרידו סגלו זולים ולוס, חברו סמוסדוס, כל מועדי אל. מיתן פרים מים תרד מעיניים, מרשתוס נחלד מוסלס, תרפים וגופים וסופים, כמו באמר איש החובר מזוס. עשרי התורה מחזיקי מסורה, והפיכי כולנו הצעים, ברחוב שם מדרשוס, ומורים ומורוס, תינוקוס בייס רבון, יקירי יקים, מוספוס חוס וסובי, יסים וסבוס, ואו זרום בטבם שירדו מאוד, וגם רבוס רבוס תאבים, חי מסום ונפרודים. אז תמם דרוש כיס יסרס ראש על שוקו, נידף להורים התשופים. אז כל נפשוס מייס, ימי שבע ושש, שישה פי פעמה, במי אהבים. ששיעור לוויה וברק זעם, סוער מקמר חמר, אהבתו ולדור, אהבתו, כל דור, זכור, זכר זרום, עד כאן מספר כסבתו. זכרון הכוס, רץ לכוס, וזו לרצח ירד מהם, לא פניהם, לא שכח לנצח. כל חילוק ניחון, היא צריכון, משתודד לכוס הכלבים זכרון, סוער בנודו חוד, סורור, עד עץ מקומר בון אהובים. מחנוס הפרועים, כאב ונגעים, פחין ופשוס אגמוס, חלפוס וצחוק, פימוס ורוק, פיצי הכוס אימוס, רבעון, צימאון, שיגעון, עיצבון וכישרון, נכשלים בלי כוח, רחון הכוס כיחיד ומלוא חליל חמישכוח. סימוס השור, בכיתו מכישרון, צילי צילים עצמוס, בגידים מחג'י הרעל, כל שרגוס, קל נחלקים, תוך עדים, שיחון קופוס, וביוס קופוס, כולל גלדו מנן מס נוצים, איכות פולטוב אין לבריס, חביהם באור איש לקושתי הנשים. קיצץ אצלו של ראש הבוס ימין שיבוד, פרח צמובס לשמאל, ויכלו יויוס על חברי הבורוס בייסורי חיבוד קבר ודום ספשול,
איך הנוח חסנו בסלסו וזו חסנו סו בנצנו כוסוס תאילה מדלף עם עשרים תסידים חילוס וסתורים צביון ילדים מתי שמק כמרים ססמים לא אדם בני הגולה הויה ליל מפלס חסידך צון קדושים ילך שישום לא שכבה בחונך ומקד שישמך כל שמע ישראל מסור נפש ואל שהוא יעשהם על יום האחרון יצליחו דין ואף אני מאמין אנו בשור ושירס בידך ובכן נשאר עמי כי יסוד דינה וכבין השתתך לא מצוא ספר לבכוס פוס לבום תוסח רק נסחי אדום אז כל עשום תשים לי שוכח הרי אפרי הכסם תשומוס תשתה מזבח מי ימלל צר ישראל אשר דעתו מחי מפרפס שיספר כמעט מזה איך כבוס היום נכפפס אל חיים רחם עד עסקון לכם אשר אלך מאוד נכספס או חדש תזריח כנהו תצמיח ברוח אלוהים מרח אפס. You have is a pile here of Kinnos. So everybody should take this is the keynote which is written by for the October 7th. As I said before, the Rav Rabbi Yoshe was against our writing Kinnos in our day and age, but as he says here, Rabbi Howard writes his Kinnos an adaptation of Kino Chafei Shav Asur Mimenu, one which we I don't know if it's Kino Chafei. Anyway, but as in May, it was rehabilitation one written in the 11th century, but the main point is that for us, as he writes here, it's appropriate, relevant, and useful. I think all of us remember last Simchas Torah when we came into Shul and couldn't believe, gradually as I heard the casualty numbers mounting. First there were a few, then dozens, then hundreds, then over 1,000 as the news came in throughout the course of the day, and how shocking and how demoralizing, depressing, and saddening, and agonizing it was. And this is something which is raw by us, and therefore it's something which is ma'orer us more. And obviously today we said Mishaberachs. This week they say Hamas says they killed a captive and wounded 2 others, and there it's the people who are in captivity for so 10 months. It's so hard even to conceive of this, and Jews are killed every day, and Jews are wounded every day, and the Avelus is really an Avelus which is ongoing, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should see our suffering and hear our tefillah and Yom HaRatzor Seinu Dai. Mi'itein Roshi Mayim V'leinu Mikol Avkei V'sayim V'lai Chalei Apai V'lai Sheiko Lai V'yitam V'atem Anu Avoy V'lai V'lai V'chein B'chol Becher Ra V'herem Abeis Rav Hamanai K'nefu V'cherem Roti Ma'ini V'chol Yistei B'chim Ke'imi Morei Levam Anochim Absulos Seifos Ledim Rakim Nichtafim V'atevar Nimshachim Al-Muetzim Nimsaprim V'avchim Otzit Chutzos Nidoshim Nishachim Abeis Yisrael V'amanoi K'neflu V'chorem V'aleil Ani Bochia V'libi Nohem Nimos Chutzarichem V'chadorim Emos V'riverim Kvar Zosh Teros Chalalei Butorim Alumim V'amos Nibosam Kisachol Ches Eretz V'emos V'ekimei Sebo Alamim V'alemos V'satim B'moh Monai U'mabim Chlimos Abeis V'amanoi K'neflu V'chorem V'avoyis L'mayim Demol Agirah K'mar Alei Hogei HaTzavah V'suyachad Nafsho V'ishlimu V'morah Chudashem Alunas Amol V'nachamu V'gvurol Kibrei Koach Rosei Borol V'mahara Shimon Avshom Ba'avok Shura Ahim Alehem V'chiela L'chashra Kulei Kesa Osham L'Torah V'shrosei Min Sharim Kalu V'me'arios L'Yizkabra V'lem Zakah Shever Shara Ashtei Mikdosha Yisodam Kayom Ur-Ara Abeis Yisrael V'amanoi Ki Naflu V'chorem החג אשר נהפך להיות גם בצורה יום מתן נעשה אותי לכל גגה כמו על יום תראי לעיני דמעה ולילה וענודה המטרה אשר מבוז יקרא ולזהב חמורה חדה לפי שלום ועולם מיישובם וישובה בתארים רוצחים מקולקלים לפי כל העם אשר הוא אור לגויים יושבים בחושך זה שומה עליין ומספד מעל לקשרה הבית סלבנה כנפלו בחורם שנאה לסלום לעם עולם הולך זה מסגברס ממלכו ונחידי מגוי ולא זוכר שם ישראל וזה אנו מסבלים מספס בייס אלוהינו עולם הבירה תעשינו היום ויוסי אור לרע אספרה ואלילה והבקע בנפש מרה והנחסי כבדה מבוקר ועד ערב הבייס ישראל ועם אדוני כי נפלו בחורם. Before we get to Eli Tzion of course ends the Kinnos with the idea that there's no end to the Avelus as long as Beis Hamikdash is not rebuilt. Eli Tzion Varel, we should continue crying. But there are a couple of things I wanted to share. I think maybe they went down to WhatsApp, but which I saw the thought were appropriate, and just his ideas that he couldn't for to take away from Tisha B'Av. So this was something which I got in my WhatsApp also, which is evidently from a gathering for women. You know, I don't think we don't have men don't come up with these ideas, and there's something wrong with us. But women come up with good ideas, and about making shalom, making the diva shalom go viral, practical ideas, and practicing peace, practical strategies. So I just want to go over them, maybe we can get some inspiration from them. Smile frequently. Smiles can be heard over the phone too. Offer a compliment with sincerity, taking note of a specific aspect. Always remember that being smart is far more important than being right. Be mevater. Be the first to jump in and mend fences. The lens through which you view others should be as pristine as the one through which you want to be viewed. If you've got it, don't flaunt it. Be selective with whom you share your successes and nachas. Do not join other people's biases, even if they belong to your relatives. If you are in a state of machlokas, commit yourself to shalom and make a gesture towards peace. Before you become angry or disappointed in someone, train yourself to think of explanations. Refrain from reacting right away. If you battle for dominance in an argument, ask yourself, what would I lose by just agreeing to disagree? Find a way to connect with a family member with whom you are least in touch. Say good Shabbos to a passerby, regardless of whether you know him or her. Before leaving to the grocery store, offer to shop for someone who would appreciate it. This next one takes a lot of serious nefesh. Offer to drive an extra carpool run without expecting payback. Extend a Shabbos invitation to someone who would appreciate it. Allow someone to go ahead of you on the checkout line. The next time you get an invitation to a simcha, try to feel, this is also a very big one. Next time you get an invitation to a simcha, try to feel as if it's your own. If you hear about a tragedy in Klal, so try to feel their pain as if it were your own. Next one I didn't understand it, somebody explained it to me because it uses slang I'm not familiar with. Start a friendly conversation with a Jew who bagels you. You know what it means to bagel somebody?
Yeah. No. It's more time candle lighting is when you know they haven't lit candles in like 30 years.
Yeah, they want to say something Jewish.
They want to identify as Jewish,
They
too.
know that you're Jewish.
Oh,
Is there worse than a tuna bagel?
Yes. So that somebody bagels you, may start a friendly conversation with them.
This is how you let them know you're Jewish, even though they don't look Jewish.
Yeah. This is a powerful one.
I know.
The next time you hear someone needs a refuah or you hear about solar whizzing by, say a parak of Tehillim. Wow. Do not, now this is a tremendously sign, which I don't know if any of us can be omitted in. Do not use your phone during social interactions. Learn a savor about Shalom with a friend, such as live the blessing of the Chavetz Chaim Heritage Foundation. These are all tremendous aitzes. Obviously, a person does all of them as a tremendous tzaddik. It's tzidkonis, but it's worthwhile chazering them and taking one or two of them and trying to live by them. And this I was struck by, everybody knows this because it's Avram Fried song. It's actually from the Rebbe Rav Elimelech of Luzhansk. Rebbe Rav Elimelech wrote a tefillah to say before davening. He wrote so. And it's a long and beautiful tefillah, but part of it became a song, and it's something which we should remember, as something which we should live by, and something the only way which the Gula is ultimately going to come. I'm going to read and translate just a few lines. Save us from being jealous of each person from his friend. Jealousy of somebody else should not come into our heart. Nor jealousy on us go into others' hearts. Adarabba.
Contrary. Tamely beinu shnir kol echad ma'los chavarenu v'lo chesronam. We should all put in our hearts, and we should all see the milus, the great levels of our friends, and not the shortcomings. We should either speak to our friend in the correct and way, which is the one which you want us to talk to them. And nobody should ever hate anybody else. And strengthen our connection with love to you. As you know that everything we do is we mean to give you a nachas ruach HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'ze'ikar kavonaseinu. That's our primary kavanah. So the way to fix the churban and way to go to the gula is by seeing ma'alas chaveinu v'lo chesunam, not be kanoi, not to have kina, not to do everything, but to speak about the people, derech hayoshav v'rotzi lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not to hate chas v'shalom any other Jew, no matter how despicable they might be. And we always think, yeah, but they're exceptions. Come on, they didn't mean to. Not him. Of course I can hate, right? So there are no exceptions, and every other Jew is a child of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and as difficult as it may be, they say obviously it's very good, very easy until you get the actual Jews. So but the idea is that Adarabba, and we should all do everything for Nachas Ruach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Ikar Kavonaseinu, that everything we do, wherever we find ourselves, whether we're in Golus or Geula, especially when we're in Golus, everything should be for Nachas Ruach HaKadosh Baruch Hu and no other reason.